Right, we're now going to build the subframe for the roof. This is for the Guards wagon that we've just finished. There we are. So what you need to do is to lay out the parts we're going to need first, which you can see in front of you. And if you lay them out in that order, then it's going to make this job a lot easier. So we've got, each one of those is a different part, although they may look similar. So some of them got cutouts, big cutouts with none, and a little cutout with none. Also on these parts, you'll see there's like a small line following the curve. Now that's been slightly already laser cut through and engraved, because when we finished all this, we actually break that piece off. So we just end up with the bit for the roof for the curve. And that's done all on all three. So you've got to be fairly careful that you don't break these pieces off while we're actually building it. Right, so there's our coach. So the first thing we have to do is to take out the bracing piece, which, if you remember, says do not glue, so we don't glue that one on there because we now have to remove that one, which is what we will do. And there's two ways of doing it. You can either just cut it with a pair of snips, or you can actually just flex it a little bit and it will pop out, as I've done there. Right. It's important you have the seats fitted for this next job, because the seats are used as a reference point to get the height right. You'll also need some sellotape as a temporary measure to hold some of the bits in. So that's what we'll do now. And I'll get my sellotape ready. So you want 3 pieces of sellotape about that sort of length. So take the tallest one, which is this one here, and you'll see it's got a small line engraved on it and no line engraved on it. So you want to be able to see the small line engraved on the outside. So that's how that's dropped into there. You can see that drops down quite snugly. But what we want to do is just put a little bit of sellotape on the bottom piece just to hold it in there. So what I tend to do is, if you just put a little piece like I've done there, sort of bend it up a little bit, and then what we're trying to do is we need to put that down into the bottom. This is one of the more difficult things to do. So he's down and he's touching on the bottom, so he's square, and then just push the sellotape up a little bit so that holds that piece quite nicely there. So the next piece we take is the center section. Now this one is different to this one. As you can see, this one has slots in it, this one doesn't. So you need the one with the slots in. And that goes down and it rests on the seats, as you can see there. It can't move forward because of the bracing pieces we've got in there. So that's the next piece we have to sellotape in. Again, a little bit of sellotape. Because we've got a door, do it on one end where the seats are. So you can see what I'm doing. Down through the gap, rest on the seats, and just rub your finger up the sellotape so it holds that piece in. Then we've got the last piece that goes up the other end. Again, you've got a small mark, and that small mark wants to face to the outside, so you can see it. And again, we slide this one down till it sits on the seat, so we're going to need a little bit of sellotape again. So we put our sellotape on first. Slide it down between the gap. Make sure it's resting on the seats and push the sellotape in position. So we're now ready to add the bracing structure that goes across the top, which we've already laid out in the order I have here. Hopefully you have as well. So we'll start off by fitting this one part. So he slots in, drops down over the slot there, and then just by flexing it, drop it into the holes on the end, Then we move to the next one. And this one's got the big cutout in it and the funny little slots there. So that goes into the next one. It's important you get this order right. Otherwise, when you come to do everything, you'll find that things don't line up as they should. And we take the next one, which has just got one slot in it. We take the last one, which has just got one small slot in it. Right, once they're all in, make sure they're still sat on the seats. This is quite crucial. And push it together from each end while pushing down on the seats. And you should have a little bit of play backwards and forwards. That will be needed when we finish the roof to make sure it's a good fit. So the next job we then have to do is to apply some super glue to all the joints while making sure that we're still pushed down onto the seats. So we start at this end. You just want to put a small smear of super glue up each of those. Do it on the inside on that one. And just keep a bit of pressure in that direction while pushing down slightly until those joints have gone off. Then you do exactly the same this end. Smear super glue on each of those, again on the inside. Push it together and keep a little bit of down pressure on it as well. Make sure there's no gaps between those. Then we move to the center section, again making sure it's pushed down on the seats. Then we just put a bit of super glue, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And again make sure we've got just a little bit of pressure pushing down. Right, I'll go ahead and do that now. I'll just show you the first few bits of super glue and then you can carry on and do the rest yourself. So when you come back I'd have done it. So I'll just get me the glue ready. So it's a nice runny super glue. Suitable tool for putting the glue on with. For the moment I use the end of a small screwdriver. Just clean the existing glue off. Right, so push down. I tend to do one at a time. So a bit of super glue. Into that corner. And then keep it pressed down and a bit of pressure. And we move on to the next one. Again, a bit of pressure. And so on until we've gone round all the joints. So when you come back, I'd have done all my joints. Right, join me back now where I've gone round and glued up all those joints. So we then have to carefully, using a screwdriver or a knife, remove the sellotape. Again, trying to keep everything in one piece. So you can then lift out very carefully our frame, which is for the roof. So you now put the wagon to one side and we can do a bit more on the roof. We need to reinforce the joints because you remember we just ran a bit of super glue up on one side. We now need to go to the other side and again just put a smear of super glue into the edge. Try not to do any on the outside, it's not needed. Just need to reinforce the corners that we missed before. Obviously on this centre section, it's both sides. And down to the end. And put that aside for about 5 minutes, just for the glue to go off. So when you come back, 5 minutes would have gone by. Alright, so as you come back, so this is now dry. So the next task is to actually glue the roof to the frame, but while it's fitted in the coach. Now I'll show you first of all without the frame in the coach so you can see what we're doing. If you find the roof section, you'll find it's got engraving on one side, plain on the other, and you'll find two little marks which are the centre of the roof. Now those marks line up with the two lines that we had before. So imagine the coach is on top of here, which we'll do in a moment. You lay your roof section down, and you drop this down on top, and you line up the marks at each end. So I'll show you. As you can see, we line up the marks there and at that end there, and we make sure we got the same distance showing of roof from the frame as we have from that end, so it's sliding backwards and forwards. This is done when it's on the flat. So we'll assume now that that's what we've got, and the lines may line up and we've got the same sticking out, but bearing in mind this body will be on top at the time. I'll do this without the body so you can see what we do first. So then, having done that, we're keeping some pressure on top. We add a little bit of super glue where that little line is, and a little bit of super glue where that line is, just to glue the middle section. We wait 2 or 3 minutes, keeping a bit of pressure on it, and then we gently roll the whole wagon to one side. This, because it's glue, will pick up this side, and then we run glue round the 3 places where it touches. So that's there, there, and there. Again, the runny super glue. Again, wait 2 to 3 minutes, and then we roll it back the other way, and we do exactly the same over on those 3 positions there. And then we move on to the next section. But before we do that, let's actually do that for real. So take a body, drop him in, turn him upside down onto the marks, and I'll go ahead and do that now, and when you come back I'd have rolled it twice and we'd have glued it on. Right, so I've glued all mine. I've done the 2 rolls, that side and that side. So very carefully pick it up as one unit, turn it over and gently lift the roof section off. Put the body to one side, and we now have to add some more glue to this part to reinforce it. Again, what we have to do is we have to run super glue along that position, there, 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 and there. Now when you do it, put a smear at one end and just tease it down and then gently apply a little bit of pressure just to hold it to the former. And again, you want to hold that for about 30 seconds. So it's just pushed down tightly. Of course, while you're holding that one, you can carry on and do the next. and again gently hold pressure on that one. So we do that in all the locations, which I will do, and you can do when you come back. We'll move on to the next section. Right, so I've now done that on all the curved pieces. It's also beneficial just to add spotted super glue there. 1, 2, 3, and the same on the other side. So that's one in the middle, and then 1, 2, 3, just to give it that little bit more strength and to make sure the roof stays square. So I'll do that now. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 1 at that end. And just give it a little bit of a rub, and then just a little bit of pressure in those places just to make sure it sticks. Again, just a little bit of pressure for about 30 seconds, and then when you've done that, we do the other side. So when you come back, I'd have done that. Right, so I've done all my gluing around the sides, so leave it 5 to 10 minutes for the glue to go off properly, which I've already done. So we now have to separate these fixtures. So again, it's thumb gently onto there, and then you can just, and it breaks off. And we'll do the same with the middle section, and we'll do it with the long end section. So we discard those. Now don't be tempted at this point to fit this onto the wagon or coach, because some of the glue is still wet, and the chances are that when you do put it on, you won't get the thing off again, which is certainly not what we want. So really need to make sure the glue is thoroughly dry. There's no chance of it actually sticking. So I know I'm happy with this one. So at that point we can then do a trial fit. This being the Guards wagon, you can obviously see that it will only fit one way. So drop it on top, and we've got a nice fit on there. There's a little bit of movement, but that's acceptable. So the next job then is to fit the lighting unit, which we will move on to now. We'll just put the roof to one side a moment and explain a little bit on the lighting bar. This is as it comes. And it comes with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 LEDs, and it is cut to the right length. And on the back is a piece of double-sided tape, which I'll just show you. You can peel off, but you don't do this yet until it's in situ. You'll see why. It's very, very sticky once it comes off. That's exceptionally sticky surface there. So we'll come back to that in a minute. The actual LEDs themselves are a 6-volt system, but if you run them on 6 volts, they can be too bright. The unit that comes with it has got batteries in it and an on-off switch, but you'll find that there's only actually one battery fitted, as I think they run a little bit too bright. The batteries are in series with each other, so 2 batteries in series gives you 6 volts, which is for the light. So what I supply is one battery only, but of course you've got to simulate a battery for the circuit to be made, so you'll find there's a 5p coin put in there. So that then means the lights run on 3 volts. So if you want to make them brighter, it's quite easy to add another cell, but the other way around, so they're in series. It's actually labelled on the actual unit itself. So that's what we have there. We have a switch, off-on switch. So that's on, that's off, very straightforward. So we'll now move on to fitting this into the roof itself. Right, to fit to the roof is fairly straightforward. You need the roof, you need the keeper plate, and you need the lighting bar. So we start off by feeding the lighting bar through the slot, as you can see I'm doing. Pull it all the way through, and then spinning round, as you can see I'm doing, and then you feed him up under there, and you'll find that it will lay down the full length. What we'll do is we're looking to put it in the middle. So you've effectively got two LEDs there, and there's one happens to be on the bar, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this particular area here. So the next job then is to actually locate this down with the double-sided tape. This is where we haven't taken it off yet because it is very, very sticky. So unpeel the tape. All the way back. You'll find it's caught a little bit where the heat shrink is. If you give it a little yank, it comes off. Right, I've got to be careful here because you end up sticking the wrong things to the wrong bits. So gently feed it in. Don't push down yet until you're touching up the far end here. And then centrally left and right. And just give it a little bit of pressure, and then move yourself along until we're up to this end where the wiring is, and then you can give it a little bit of more firm pressure. Then move on to the battery box. Now the battery box lives in that location there with the keeper plate which we come to that holds it in place. So the first thing we have to do is to coil the wire up. And again, various ways of doing this. Just keep turning it. Turn it again, a bit tighter. There we go. So the wire will hold itself in there. And then the keeper plate, hence the slots as you can see. We lower it down, and then push it, and it locks in position. So that holds the battery pack in. Then you've got your on-off switch there. So that's your lighting on and your lighting off. So we can turn the lighting on. We can take our coach, sit him down on. As you can see, we now have lighting. I'll just turn off the spot lamp. There we go. So you can actually see we have lighting inside the coach. So that's how you do a lighting roof on the Guards coach. Very nice, very straightforward. As I say, if you want to replace the 5p with another battery, then that will make the lights much, much brighter. I found that with one battery, I get about a 4-hour use out of the lights before they go too dim, which is not too bad actually. And I think it's a CR2026 battery, which is a general purpose battery that you can get from basically anywhere really. B&Q, any little shop sells them. They're also fairly used in key fobs, alarms, just about everywhere. So there we have it. That's that job done.